Welcome to Deleted Saves. On this episode, Castlevania, Legacy of Darkness on the N64. Oh, Castlevania, what went wrong here? Back in my introductory episode, I said there would be some games that I remembered because they pissed me off more than for how great they were. Today we finally discuss one of those and introduce a new type of segment on Deleted Saves. Castlevania, Legacy of Darkness, we need to talk. It would be safe to say that I am a fan of the Castlevania series. And while the series is currently dormant, possibly staked and left for dead in the sun forever, there have been a lot of good and entertaining entries in the series. Of course, there have been a lot of less than stellar entries, but that's for another time. 1999's Legacy of Darkness is one for the latter category that deserves special attention. The history of this game is somewhat convoluted. In January of 1999, Castlevania 64 was released on the N64 to get the game onto consoles after 2 years of development issues, and it featured two characters with separate missions, Reinhard Schneider and Carrie Fernandez. Vague allusions to series stalwarts the Belmont family, and the mage Saifa Belnades from Castlevania 3. Much like Castlevania 2, if the characters did not defeat Dracula within 16 in-game days, then they will receive the bad ending, in which Dracula returns and evil wins, darkness reigns, the usual plot. It was also the first 3D Castlevania game, but unlike other first-party 3D N64 games, it was less than smooth in gameplay execution, playing more like a brick on 4 flat tires than a performance sports car. Konami quickly admitted that there has been a lot of cut content so the game can get to market, and the game was savaged by critics. I played it myself, and despite finishing the game, it was bad, and it was easy to tell what the players did get was stitched back together worse than Frankenstein's monster. So, in December of 1999, Konami released Legacy of Darkness, with the content restored. The roster of heroes was increased from 2 to 4, now including Cornell the Kung Fu Werewolf and Henry, a knight carrying a revolver, in addition to the original characters. Again, as stated in the previous episode, I'm a fan of werewolves as well, so against my better knowledge, I just had to try this new version out. Once I popped the game into the console and outside of a new intro screen, I realized it was the same game as the previous installment, quite literally in fact. You were forced to play as Cornell and complete the game to even unlock the ability to select the other characters. Same opening stage outside the castle fighting against an army of skeletons. Same chase through the gardens with a chainsaw-wielding Frankenstein. Same hunt through the castle but with a few changes to the boss enemies. Same poor controls, same bland, uninspired stage designs. And Cornell gets kind of a crap ending, in which he has to give up his werewolf nature to save his bride-to-be, which is what Dracula required to be reborn this time around. He may be well enough off, but his sacrifice opens the door to doom for humanity. Once complete, you could now play as Reinhard or Carrie and repeat the events of Castlevania 64 if you so chose. Just so you know, the Henry mission only took place across the first few stages of the game, as his mission was only to recover the children kidnapped as part of the Dracula clan's search for worthy vessels for the Lord of Darkness's powers, but otherwise he dips out and flees once the kids are saved. Not exactly heroic in my book, but your opinion may differ. But did any of these added features help salvage the game and its reputation? Unfortunately no. I understand a lot of the backlash was just the professional critical analysis, and sometimes critics can just be wrong or finicky. For myself, I really wanted to like this game despite its flaws, and I tried. But I just couldn't. The gothic confines of the game, a core element of the series, were more like a Spirit Halloween store vomited in a high school gym than a spooky old castle with a dark history. 3D polygons in this generation were not kind to Legacy of Darkness, making enemies and characters look like pastel paper dolls instead of grizzled combat veterans and sinister creatures of the night. The game, in both story and execution, just contributes to a sense of dullness, featuring boredom and lack of polish. Yet, the transition from 2D sprites in a flat environment to 3D sprites in fully realized worlds was rough, no one can argue that. But I think this game could have been much more than it was. However, I'm not a game designer, so I'm not sure how that could have been achieved with the technology at hand at the time. Castlevania Legacy of Darkness is little more than a so-so entry in a storied game canon, with a troubled development history and lackluster results. There were moments of promise, but perhaps I expected too much. Not every entry in a long-running series of media can be great. For every success, there are 1,000 experiments that simply did not work. But considering the current state of the Castlevania franchise, perhaps it is better that we have this game than not at all, if nothing else than to teach designers of the future what not to do. Thank you for listening.